the partner. Butch McCall was back on deck watching Blackwood's chopper land on the helipad of Endangered One, and he knew the old man had just briefed the troops on Endangered Two. It looked like Mitch Merton had made it and passed the gizmo and Butch's message to Blackwood. But tossing Mitch overboard hadn't worked out as well as Butch would have liked. Al and his men were still looking for him aboard the Colin Call. Butch corrected himself. Al and his man were looking for him. He had just bumped into Roy. While Roy grilled Dr. O'Connor about who he was and what he was doing up on deck, Butch let his telescoping baton drop from his sleeve into his hand, extended it, and in one fluid motion hit Roy squarely on his left temple, dropping him to the deck like an anchor. Butch took Roy's gun, and more important, his encrypted military radio. He also discovered that Roy was not wearing a tracking tag around his neck. This told him that Wolf might have deactivated the tags, which is exactly what Butch had wanted him to do. With the tags off, Butch could toss anyone he liked over the side and no one would know. He put the theory to the test by tossing Roy, then plugged the earpiece into his ear and listened. It wasn't long before Al came on the radio and asked for Roy. When Roy didn't answer, Joe cut in and said that Roy had gone to his cabin to get some shut-eye. Permanent shut-eye, Butch thought. Or maybe his eyes are open. One thing was for sure, opened or closed, Roy's eyes were no longer capable of seeing. Why would he turn his radio off? Al asked, irritated. Probably because he wanted to get some sleep, Joe said. Where are you? Outside Lab 9, Al said. I want you guys to keep your radios on at all times. I don't care if the radio traffic bothers you or not. We should have brought more people, Joe said. I would have if Wolf had let me, Al said. Want me to go down and turn on his radio? Joe asked. Al thought about it for a moment. Nah, let him sleep. One of us needs to be rested for tomorrow. I think that's when Blackwood is going to make his move. The tags are off, Butch thought. If they were active, they would know that Roy was not in his bunk. Though his free ear, Butch heard a quiet footfall coming up behind him. The baton was back up his sleeve. He prided himself on his hearing ability. Years ago, in Tanzania, a leopard had skulked up behind him while he sat in front of a crackling fire. The cat was dead before it felt the warmth of the flames. He judged the ongoing footfalls to be about 15 paces away and debated whether he should drop the baton at 3 feet and hit a homer or whether he should turn and play the befuddled and kindly Dr. O'Connor. It's cold up here, his partner said. Couldn't you have picked a better place to meet? And what about my tracking tag? They'll know I'm up here. Looks like I get to play myself, Butch thought. He turned around. The best place to hide is in the open or in a crowd, he said. When you look around like you were just doing, people notice. You and I can't afford to be noticed. And the tracking tags are offline, which means no one knows where you are or anyone else is. His partner was a little inexperienced, but a lot smarter than Mitch Martin, always thinking and asked the right questions. He was glad he had chosen Mitch for the swim team. What have you learned? Butch asked. Wolf is on the bridge with Cap and Al. Laurel Lee is in Lab 9. I think Phil is with her, which is why they don't have anyone manning this door. The kids are in their cabin sleeping, with Bertha standing guard outside their doors like the Rock of Gibraltar. Is Bertha alone? Yep. How'd they take the loss of Marty? What? Marty, Butch repeated. Gracious, obnoxious cousin. Marty's in the cabin with Lucer. That's impossible. I saw him walk into the cabin myself. The kid has 9 lives, Butch said in disgust. He was tempted to march down there and put the theory to the test, but he would have to get through Bertha, and that could be a problem. She was one of the few people on board who might recognize him from a distance by the way he moved. Because of her ranger training, Her brain would go into high alert no matter who she saw walking past the kids' cabins, especially now after he had tried and obnoxiously failed to get rid of Marty O'Hara. Butch discarded the idea. The only thing that made it easier was knowing that in a few hours he'd get another shot at the little brat, and this time he wouldn't fail. "What's going on, Butch?" "Never mind," Butch growled. "Did you find out any more about how and when they're going after the giant squid?" "I still don't know how, but I do have an idea when. I think they're going to release the dolphins tomorrow at dawn." "That means the moon pool will be opened then." "Right. What else?" "Something strange is going on down at the moon pool. They changed the entrance code. Wolf said they were doing some kind of maintenance. And I walked right down there to see what they were doing. Someone was inside, and I couldn't see through the door. I hid in a mop closet and watched, hoping Al or one of his men wouldn't show up to ask me what I was doing in there. But with the tags off, Whatever," Butch interrupted impatiently. "Get to the point." About a half hour passed, and Anna walked by dressed like she was going to a cocktail party. She punched in the code and walked right through. I couldn't believe it, and I thought maybe I'd punched in the wrong code. So I left the closet and put in the old code slowly. The doors didn't open. "Back up a second," Butch said. "Who's Anna?" "The reporter who showed up on the sailboat." Liar, liar, Butch thought, and wondered if Blackwood had found out who the woman really was. "Why would they give a reporter the code?" Butch asked. "And why would she be down at the moon pool?" "I have no idea. She came back out about 15 minutes, smiling. Tried the old code again. No luck." "Who was in there with her?" "That's the strangest part. I stayed in the closet for at least another hour. Finally, the moon pool doors slid open, and out walked Theo Sonborn and Marty O'Hara." "You're kidding me," Butch said. "I heard they hated each other." "I heard the same thing. They weren't talking when they walked by, but they looked like they were getting along just fine." Marty again, Butch thought. That kid seemed to be everywhere and involved in everything. "Did you follow them?" "I was going to, but I wanted to check the code one last time. It worked. The doors open." "What do you find inside?" "Winking, blinking, and nods swimming around in the moon pool." "There's something we don't know," Butch said. "I think there are a lot of things we don't know. As soon as you let the dolphins go, cut the power like I showed you. I'll jam the two-ways, the satellite phones, and ship-to-shore radio. They still have their secure radios and gizmos, but there are only a few of those." "What's the plan after that?" Butch had no idea what he was going to do after that. All he knew was that out of chaos came opportunity, and that he and his partner would have to be ready to exploit any and everything. "We wing it," he said. "Our job is to create as much confusion as we can." "I have just the thing for that," his partner said, smiling. "Good," Butch continued. "We wait for our chance, grab Grace and the dinosaurs, and get them to Blackwood. I'll try to get you a radio as soon as we stay in touch. Do you know how to use one of these things?" "No." Butch demonstrated all the components. "It's not going to be easy getting a hold of another one of these until Blackwood's people get on board." "Have you ever killed anyone?" "No." "Knocked anyone out?" "No." "You may have to." Butch flipped out his collapsible baton. "Stick this up your sleeve. If you see someone with a radio by themselves, hit them in the head as hard as you can, but don't let them see who you are in case you don't kill them with that whack. You're my secret weapon, and I want to keep it that way." He pulled a green armband out of his pocket. "When it all starts, put this on your left arm and don't take it off." "What's it for?" "It's your bulletproof vest." Butch got back into the squid lab just as Dr. Leopold was leaving. "Big day tomorrow, Dr. O'Connor," Leopold said enthusiastically. "Perhaps a giant day. I just talked with Dr. Wolf. Tomorrow morning, they go after Archimedes." "That is wonderful news," Butch said, "but who are they?" Dr. Wolf didn't say. And he didn't mention how they were going to catch it? Dr. Leopold shook his head. "They're still playing that hand close to his chest. All he said was that I should try to get plenty of sleep and be ready if they brought one in. If they succeed, it will be the catch of the century." "You wouldn't be saying that if you knew what they had up in Lab 9, Butch thought. He faked a yawn. "If you're going to be busy, I'm going to be busy," Butch said. "I better try to get some sleep myself." "Of course," Leopold said. As soon as Leopold left, Butch unclipped Roy's radio from his belt. It was identical to the radios Noah Blackwood and half the military forces around the world used, but it would only work if Blackwood's encrypted signal was the same as it had been 2 months ago. And if I can remember the 9-digit code correctly, Butch said out loud. He wrote down the current code. He would need it in a few hours so he could monitor what was going on. Then he counted out how many people on board had encrypted radios. It was important to know because it was the only communication that he wouldn't be able to disrupt. Al, Joe, Wolf, Bertha, Phil, probably Cap, and maybe even the reporter Anna. There was probably another one in Lab 9. He was sure that Al and Joe knew about the hatchlings, and they could talk on those gizmos too. There were only 3 or 4 of those. Too many ways to stay in touch, Butch thought. I need to do something about that, but first I need to talk to Blackwood. After several tries, Butch finally picked up some chatter. He listened for a few moments and was pleased to realize that he recognized some of the people talking. Normally, Butch worked alone and preferred it that way, but playing Dr. O'Connor was getting on his nerves. He missed being Butch McCall. He keyed the mic. This is Butch. As in Butch McCall? That's right, Pepper. As in the guy who's doing all the work for you. We're deeply appreciative of your effort, mate, Pepper said sarcastically. We saw a self-portrait of you tonight with hair on your head. You need to lose it and grow the mustache back. With that white lab coat and that retro glasses, you're geek ugly, man. Butch now remembered why he liked to work alone. Patch me over to the old man on a scrambled line. Right, Pepper said. Make sure you have the green armband on tomorrow. Yeah, Butch said, you too. There was a burst of static and clicks, then Noah Blackwood came on the line. Butch, are we secure? Butch asked. On this end, I'm more worried about your end. I lifted a secure radio from one of Al's men. He's not going to miss it. If you thought of that earlier, perhaps you wouldn't have had to throw Mitch over the side, Blackwood said. The opportunity didn't present itself until recently, and I would have tossed Mitch anyway. He was worthless, and I didn't trust him. This was followed by long silence, which made Butch nervous. I don't trust him either, Blackwood finally said. Butch breathed a sigh of relief. He's a good swimmer, though, Blackwood continued in an unsarcastically chatter way. And according to Mitch, he's very good with his hands. He was quite concerned about what was going to happen to him now that he's no longer a member of the Eat Wolf team. I told him I will have a perfect position for him in the basement with Henrico, so the problem is taken care of. Ouch, Butch thought, and Mitch is someone who helped Blackwood. Careful, he told himself. Remember who's on the scrambled line. I'm just checking in to let you know that I have a radio, so won't be using the flare, Butch said. When I have the package, I'll give you a shout. Excellent. Do you have any idea on the time? Early, I think. I have everything in place here. I'd have Pepper and his men on their way before light, which means the others need to be ready too. They'll be ready, Blackwood assured him. Another thing, Butch said. Tell Pepper that the moon pool doors will be wide open, so he shouldn't have any problem there. Do you have any more information on their plans for catching the giant squid? Negative, Butch said, and that has me a little concerned. I don't think they're using the dolphins to catch the giant squid. They changed the code to the moon pool for a while tonight, and the only reason they could do that is because there is something in there they don't want people to see. They haven't even told the squid doctor what's going on. You'd think they would tell the world's authority on giant squid what their plans are. That is curious, Blackwood said, but it shouldn't affect our plans. Bringing in a giant squid would be nice, but it's a distant third to our primary targets. When this is all over, I'm going to pay a visit to Ted Bronson on Cryptos, or have you go fetch him. He'll tell us what the plans were, and we'll go out and capture our own giant squid. Butch looked forward to fetching Ted Bronson. A couple of other things, Butch said. They're short-handed here, but you need to tell Pepper and the other guys not to let their guard down. The handful of people they have are pros and highly motivated. They could even the odds very quickly and turn this to their advantage. I already warned them, Blackwood said, but I'll do it again. And finally, the reporter, whoever she is going by the name Anna, Butch said. She seems to have full access to everything, including the moon pool and probably Lab 9. I also think she's in on the plans to catch the squid. Anna Mika? Blackwood said harshly. She's an investigative journalist and an old friend of the Cryptos gang. I'm glad she's on board because she's going down with everyone else. Make sure of it. No problem, Butch said.